points on the lesson. Live in the hills, but I still get a spread. Started with a little, but I still reinvest it. Fear how I feel, then you feel like a blessing. I just want the lesson, I just want protection. I'm up and I'm down, but they sound like progression. Farmer never plans if he waits for perfection. Finger to the down.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. Today, I want to talk about, should you buy Bitcoin or real estate? A little Bitcoin versus real estate here, but I want to show you two deals that I made. I'm going to go over one real estate deal, and then I'm even going to show you a little bit of the Coinbase portfolio here with Bitcoin and compare the performance and allow us to talk about growth versus yield. So we talked about this a little bit on stream. A lot of people have been having questions about this. They want to invest. You've been killing it with the long-term portfolios, the trades, everything. You're starting to expand a little bit, looking outside. So a lot of people are saying, well, should we buy Bitcoin? It's at all-time highs, but then a lot of people are seeing what they could do with real estate. So I'm going to go over both of these, and hopefully you can determine which one is going to be the best for you. And I say that because this is why we're talking about growth versus yield. That is going to be the key here. Understand some of the pros and cons so you could determine. Now, the best part is both of the investments I show you are going to be about equivalent amount invested. So you can see here this Bitcoin and Ethereum portfolio. It's at $141,000, but I believe this is off of like $50,000 investment, maybe a little less or more. And then I have a real estate deal to show you, which was an equivalent amount. And this has all been within the last, like 6 months or so. So you could even see this account was even at like $3,000 last year. So we have a lot to talk about. But before we get into that, hopefully we see you guys on stream. If you don't know, we are live Monday through Friday, 30 minutes before open. Drop your thumbs up on the video. Make sure you're subscribed. YouTube.com/thestockmarket. So we do all of these trades live. I've even told you guys about when I've bought Bitcoin. That is all of these little spikes here because we actually started using this kind of throwaway account and it has turned into something nice, but hopefully we see you on stream. So before I get into the pros and cons and all of that, let's start with both of these deals so you could actually see what I did. So let's pull out the calculator here. If you guys ever remember me talking about this on stream, I bought $15,000 worth of Bitcoin in August. So we talked about this. You can see the account was at $5,000. It jumps up to $20,000. That was the first investment. So that was our $15,000 that we put in. We had a little bit of residual Bitcoin from this throwaway account, but we're going to just look at the money invested to kind of get apples to apples with this deal. So that was in August, put in $15,000. Bitcoin started growing crazy. That $15,000 eventually went up to $70,000. We bought the Bitcoin at like $10,000. It was crazy. And then at the beginning of this year, I made another video about it. We talked about it. I added more Bitcoin. So you see it start to jump up here. I grabbed both Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then I think it was about $23,000 in Bitcoin, and then I was able to grab another $10,000 on Ethereum. So the total investment that I'm boiling down this whole account to is about $48,000, and it has turned into $141,000 today. Now that we started the first investment in August 2020, and then we also got some here in February 2021. So this is about 6 months total, with one of the investments happening just about a month ago. So that is the Bitcoin investment. So this is going to relate into some of the keys. You can see here, that's not a lot of time, but it has been able to grow a lot, and Bitcoin just keeps going up and up and up. So keep those numbers in mind. Now let's go to the real estate deal. Here is from one of the closings. I can't show you all of the details. It has a lot of personal stuff there, but this gives you an idea of what we did here. We put about 10% down on a property. The total purchase price was $770,000. You can see here, due for buying at closing. To get the keys, to get property, to get the loan and all of that funded, it took about $75,000. Now, I bought this one right before the year end in 2020, so a little bit after we bought the Bitcoin, but now in this case, our total investment is about $75,000. The math on this one's a lot easier because since then, that property, believe it or not, has appreciated to about $870. Now, how do I know it's went up that much? How do I know the property went up? Because this property was a newer build one, and now there's a wait list and there's other people, and the neighbors' houses, same model and everything, are already selling at around $850, $870. And the one that I got was a lot more upgraded, and I've already put a renter in this one. So the best part about this one, not only did I get the equity gain, but the mortgage has already been paying for itself with the renter. Now, that's something we're going to have to talk about, but same exact logic here. Now, it's worth about $100,000 more. So if I sold it off today, the purchase price is that $770,000 minus our $75,000, 713, add another one. and now we owed about $694 on the mortgage minus a couple payments. It should stay about the same, but if you sold it right now at $870, we'd walk away with $175. I don't know if that's right. Actually, give or take, that is correct, because you would be getting your initial investment back. So this money that you're putting down, you're getting all of that money back, but it'd be about $100,000 profit on that property. So this is why I wanted to make this video and show you guys, because a lot of people are asking now, should you be buying Bitcoin or real estate? And both of them are good options. I like both of them. I have both of them. And now, best of all, you can see kind of how it's played out on both assets over the last 6 to 8 months. So in the grand scope of things, I made $100,000 on both of those assets, but what did I have to do to make that money? The house took a lot more work. There's definitely a lot more variables in terms of cashing out, fees, all of that stuff. But in that instance, I was able to get a really, really good deal on the house, did a little bit more legwork. So I was able to make a decent amount quicker. Now compare that to Bitcoin. We bought it a little bit longer ago in August with only $15,000, and then that turned into 60. But then even the investment I made 3 weeks ago, that was almost up 50% now off a bigger amount. So the Bitcoin returned the same amount, but it happened a lot faster and it was a lot easier. All I had to do was log into my phone and then press buy a couple times. Now the question is going to be, moving forward, what would I do with it, or which one would I prefer? Now, if you don't hold any, which one are you looking for? Now, this is what I want to talk about here in the video: growth versus yield. When it comes down to deciding, hey, should I buy Bitcoin? Should I buy real estate? The real question is going to be, are you looking to make money off of the asset going up a lot in value? Or are you looking for the asset to kind of hold value and then slowly go up as it pays you an income or kind of gives you an immediate return? So the only way you're going to make money with Bitcoin, the only way I could pull out of that money with Bitcoin, is if I actually sell the coins today and it's at an all-time high. So that is a growth asset. This is why people buy stocks like Amazon, Facebook. They don't pay dividends, but they bought the stock so cheap it goes up a lot in value. They could trim off pieces of the stock, they could sell all of it, but that's where you make your money. Whereas now the yield is going to be an asset that could actually pay you back, whether it's a dividend stock or in this case real estate. Real estate usually offers a yield because you could rent it out, you could even live in it. But in this case, with my example, I was able to rent it out and I had somebody willing to pay pretty much the holding cost. So if you had the similar amount of money and you put that $65,000 down, you got the house, you would have to pay a monthly mortgage. But the best part is you could have somebody pay it for you, and now you get to make money off of the house going up, but then also you have it paying you monthly, and then over time, as you pay down more of the mortgage or the asset goes up in value, you'll start to see it highly benefit you. It's kind of a weird compounding effect. Now, with this example in this market, and this is what I'm going to talk about here, we were able to get growth off of both, but it was a lot different of numbers. So even though we made $100,000 on both assets, this is where it kind of confuses a lot of people, because you might think that real estate is growth. You're like, wow, that seems good. But at the end of the day, $100,000 on that, $700,000-800,000 is about like 10-11% or so. So it's not as if the real estate shot up, but getting 10% that instantly on real estate, well, that's not always going to happen that fast. And then eventually, if it slows down, you'll see it kind of leverage off over time if you make a lot of money instantly when you buy a house. So the only big difference is that it was a lot more money invested. I got to put down $65,000. They gave me a $770,000 asset, whereas all of that $48,000 that we invested into Bitcoin, that was just that money. So Bitcoin was up several 100% from August, and that's why we were able to make so much money. But at the same time, the property, we made a similar dollar amount off of a 10% move practically. So this is what you have to ask yourself when you start out. Do you want growth for yield? And what is it pretty much going to take for you to get your money? And what are you looking to accomplish both now and in the future, but especially in the future, to decide, okay, should I start with Bitcoin? Should I start with real estate? Or how can I go about doing both at the same time, which you saw me do here? Now, bringing this conversation further along, investments in growth now, what you have to understand, like Bitcoin, they are going to be more risky and the asset will fluctuate more and faster. Bitcoin just shot up $30,000 from the last time I bought it, and then it shot up another $40,000 before then. It'll have days where it could drop $10,000, $20,000. I don't know if it's ever dropped $20,000, but the numbers just keep getting getting so big. So any investment that has had a lot of growth, even Amazon stock, Google, any of the stocks in general, these assets are going to fluctuate more in pricing. Whereas value investments now, they have some sort of cap to them. They're going to be a lot more stable and not really fluctuate, 10, 20, 50% in a short amount of time. But you're also not going to be able to make 50, 60, 70% quickly. Whereas growth is what brings about these large returns. So now if you're looking to hit the big one and you're like, I want to be one of those stories where they said, I bought this 20 years ago and it turned into a sky high number, that's probably not going to happen in real estate. However, to leverage, millions of dollars of real estate where you didn't need millions, and then you could double, triple, quadruple that over 20, 30 years, maybe that would still be a very, very good return. But now if you want something to really just growth in catapult, again, Apple was only a couple dollars 20 years ago. Something with growth could move a lot more and there's not as much of a cap, whereas something with value like real estate will have that. So in this case, I would say Bitcoin is essentially limitless compared to real estate, because despite the fact that both of them have limited supply, Bitcoin is still in that growth phase. And then real estate, to a degree, it's always going to have some sort of cap to it because of the different locations and areas. And it's just not too common to watch house prices go up 10 times, whereas Bitcoin has went up 10 times over 10 times in its history. So bringing this to the last point before we go over the pros and cons, this is one of the biggest things I say, just don't forget about the leverage. Now, when it comes into deciding, hey, should I do Bitcoin or leverage, you're seeing it in this case. $40,000 got me $40,000 of Bitcoin. It was still able to turn into a lot. And now, 140,000 is a big amount. You could do anything with that. Or even if I hold that position now, holding a $140,000 investment for the next 5-10 years, that could do a lot of damage. That's big, but you don't really get any leverage. Whereas now you go into real estate, that $700,000 house is worth $880 now. Maybe by next year, if it could get up to $1 million, 2 years, but that is going to be a very, very expensive asset. So in the long run too, you get to leverage more. And if you can make smaller percentage moves, or if the market does go crazy on a bigger priced asset, you're going to be able to do a lot more with it. So some of you may have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, $100,000. The question is, how much market value is that going to really be getting you? So you have to really think about that. But when it comes to real estate, that is what always takes the cake for me, is because I could leverage smaller amounts of money into bigger assets, and then we can make better returns on those. It's easier to trade with a lot more money in that, but doing so a lot safer. Now, to pretty much recap this all, let us just go over this simple pros and cons so you could understand why. Again, I hope you guys could see, where do I stand on this? I like both of them. I think both of these are great. Obviously, I have a lot of real estate. I have Bitcoin. I've been doing Bitcoin for years now. And I think the fact that it's easy to get into Bitcoin, I think anybody could start at any level. Again, none of this is recommendation. Option trading Bitcoin is extremely risky. Unless the most financial investments, so financial educational purpose only. Thank you for today. And they're all at all-time highs right now. But the fact that you could just buy even a fraction of a Bitcoin, get a small amount, you could even see on my Coinbase, I've even been sending some to friends. I'm like, here, get a little Ether, this and that, some Bitcoin. Very, very small. It's easy. You could buy some quick stuff and hold it. So I like both of them, but all of you guys are going to have different goals and objectives. That's why you need to figure out here, do I want something with a lot more upside? Does my portfolio already have a lot of upside? What level of work am I willing to do? And overall, just going from there. So that's why I want to kind of give you two equal scenarios, go over the good and bad for both of them so you can make your decision. So now coming to Bitcoin, we've already said this, some of the pros, it is easy to invest in. You could go make a brokerage, a Coinbase, there's other platforms. You could even buy it on Robinhood, even though Robinhood doesn't actually give you the coin, still gives you a way to invest and take advantage of that growth in terms of the price movement. But the fact is, you could decide right now after this video, I want Bitcoin, and you could buy it pretty much anytime you want. That is not the same for real estate. So that's what makes it really, really easy. The next pro, it's faster to make returns with less fees and more liquidity. So you saw that I had to buy that house, go through that whole process, deal with that. And even if I wanted to sell now, I would have to deal with the renters, either sell it with the renters in there, list it, pay all those fees, do this, do that. We'd have to look at the comps people are going to offer. Whereas Bitcoin, I could just press sell and I'm most likely going to get a similar amount to what that portfolio says, because there's a lot of liquidity. They don't charge fees. The ability to change from cash to Bitcoin or Bitcoin to cash without losing too much isn't that bad. It's kind of like going to be like 1% like gold, whereas real estate could cost anywhere 5-7%. So that is another pro for Bitcoin. And finally, there's a lot of upside in terms of growth and price movement because there's a limited supply and the ease of acquiring it. Again, anybody could invest in this. It takes a lot more steps, calls, times looking for people to go buy a property, whereas Bitcoin Bitcoin could just be purchased so easily. It has a much more limited supply than homes, even though land is limited. So this is something that makes it a very, very strong pro, because now this is an asset that we're looking at, 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now with a lot of upside if it continues at this trajectory, or if it is something that really does stay here and get more normalized. So those are the pros of it. Now, as far as the cons, Bitcoin has a lot of volatile price movements and it could fluctuate easy. And now the fact that it's easy to get in and out of, it's easy to sell, which means it's easy to lose. It's very easy to get panicked. You may say you're going to hold it for a while. It shoots up, drops 10, 20, 30%. The fact that you can sell out easy without many fees, we've seen that cost a lot of people money. So the same liquidity that it's offering is also one of the downsides to it as well, I would say. So if you aren't familiar with growth assets and you're not familiar that this is what you're deciding, that's why I'm saying, which ones do you value for your financial situation? Because real estate, it's not going to fluctuate a lot. It's not going to drop 30, 40, 50%. The only time it's done that was like once or twice in history. It's going to be more stable. But Bitcoin now, you're signing up for really limitless gains. You want it to go up. You want it to move fast. With that comes a price. And then if you don't really know what you're doing, it's going to be easy to cheat yourself out of it and then play this, ring around the rosy game with it, trying to chase it, buying and selling it. Whereas real estate is a little bit more liquid and it kind of keeps you locked in there and makes it harder for you to sell at the bad time. So that's one of the big cons for Bitcoin, and then just anything with big growth in general. The next con, it's not as secure. And then if there's any problems, it's just hard to recover. So what I mean by it's not secure, it's not like you're using your bank and just most people don't know it. Crypto in general is a safe, secure currency. But now when it comes to sending it, you're going to try to move it around, try to do stuff with it. Even certain brokerages, it's just not as secure. Again, all of this is relatively new. And now if you make a mistake, you lose your wallet ID or whatever it may be. You've heard these stories of people who can't recover their Bitcoin. There's no customer support. There's no regulation behind it. You could easily solve this if you kind of just keep it in one place and don't move it. That's why I even have this little account here. But it is something that exists, and in the future, as it gets bigger and bigger, if you hold this for years and it balloons into a large amount, you're always going to have to worry about this in the back of your mind. So that's another big con. And then finally, it's still hard to understand in the technology. There's just a lot of risks associated in the future, because if you don't understand what's going on with it now, it's hard to understand what could happen in the future. There's a lot of bright minds behind it. It looks good. It looks like it's not going to go anywhere, but it just doesn't offer the same longevity and history of putting a lot of money into something like real estate, which has already proven itself. So moving on to real estate now, here are some of the pros. It is the safest investment you can make with lots of leverage. So this is beautiful, because the fact that you could get hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars by putting a little bit amount of money, why would anybody do that? Why would any bank do that? Because it's backed by a property. This is just one of the safest things you could put. Gives you an opportunity to leverage a lot of money, but not expose yourself to big risk. It's one thing to take millions of dollars and then gamble it on the stocks versus, taking millions of dollars on real estate. There's going to be certain level of certainty. So this is one of the best things, because playing with bigger amounts of money, but doing so with a safe asset, even where the bank's just willing to throw the money around, you're going to have a better chance walking away with money and a big paycheck because you're leveraging a big amount. That's the first pro, and one of the biggest pros. Just don't overlook that. I think it's just one of the biggest keys you could take from this. And then the next pro is that the real estate market is really hot again. That's why banks are willing to loan. They're changing some of the loan standards now, but this is what's creating these opportunities where you could even make 5, 10% a lot faster. The market's hot. A lot of areas all over the United States. People are active. The money's moving around. Even with what COVID has created, people want homes. So being in a market with a lot of demand that people already know about, and again, that people could get loans for, there's going to be a lot of customers there. So it's really good. And then another big pro that you can't do with Bitcoin, you could utilize the investment. So not only can you rent out the house, you could also live in it. For some people, if you're even looking for growth, again, a 10% growth on this asset, you could literally live in the house for a year, sell it, and make $100,000 just by living in the house. If you had the means to pay the mortgage, you could house hack it or whatever. But the fact that it is a real asset, you get to use it. You could use it for a lot more purposes, and it could bring about a different sort of value, which tied into your investment strategy could be really, really good for a lot of you. So that is a major pro. And then finally, you could actually still get a deal, and it's not a regulated market. So just like you saw with my deal, just by getting on a wait list, being at the right time, getting someone to make a deal with you, you go find a flip, a wholesale, anything. The fact is, you can get a deal on a property in any market. Even though the market's hot, you could always find a deal if you have good timing, see a house on the market, and see they're willing to negotiate, you could do something with it, but it's not like you're going to be able to get a discount on Bitcoin. You're just going to have to buy it at the market price or depending on how it fluctuates. So this is key because now you could use that big leverage. You could still pull a deal. You got more finesse room in real estate than Bitcoin, where Bitcoin, you're just hoping you buy it at the right time, hold it for a long amount, and then it grows. Whereas you could capture a lot of growth in a value investment by finding a real estate deal. So all of those things sound great, but now coming into the cons, it is hard to get into. It takes a lot of time. There's a lot more fees and there's a lot more gatekeepers when it comes to real estate. Bitcoin, you click a couple of buttons. Real estate, you got to call people. You got to get pre-approved. You got to fill out loans, find the type of loan, find the lender, talk to an agent, put in an offer. They're going to call you back. I'll call you tomorrow. We don't work on weekends. We don't do this. We don't do that. You're too young, whatever it may be, but they don't really tell you that. Not all the time. But point is, this is a big con because a lot of people, it's just a lot of work. It may be easier to invest by doing something else. Again, just buying Bitcoin, but this also limits the demand in the future. And you can kind of see the fact that it's a little bit harder to get into kind of raises the opportunity, but still, this is probably one of the major cons because it's a lot slower to move. And now the next con, it's a liquid. It costs money after the fees and times factoring in the market. You're probably going to walk away with less money that you expected, or by the time you purchase, you're going to have to pay a bunch of extra fees, closing costs, title fees, insurance, taxes, all that. So there's a little bit more difficulty when it comes to extracting the profits. And then finally, there's going to be more work or even just more worry because it is a physical asset. It's a structure. It has land, again, taxes and all of that stuff, but you got to maintain it, whether you have renters, whether you use it, even if you leave it empty. If you even leave it empty, you're going to run the risks of not maintaining it. So this is probably one of the bigger cons for a lot of people because you want to get houses in other places, but now you're like, I got to hire people. I got to take care of it. I don't know about the area. So the fact that it's physical, to be able to get this investment value out of it, you're going to have to put in a lot more work on there again versus just buying Bitcoin. So that is pretty much it. I hope you guys are able to kind of make your judgment here. And really, if you haven't got the idea here, if you're looking for a big price gain, you want it fast, you're willing to take big risk, and you don't want to put too much effort into it, Bitcoin meets that criteria. But if you're looking to get a big investment, maybe even leverage a lot more and kind of get a bigger return, but aren't really worried about speed, and then you kind of want more safety and wiggle room to do other stuff, and you could put in more time, effort, and research, and then you even would want a better deal, real estate may be for you. So for me personally, I've done both of these. You even saw me do these again in the same time frame. So I would always look for both. See what you could qualify for with the home, what you could work up with the down payment, and don't be afraid to add a little, maybe either monthly, weekly, whatever on Bitcoin, Ethereum, space it out and kind of do your thing from there. However, it is totally up to you, and you have to decide, okay, which pros, which cons kind of align more with me, and then which one is aligned more with my goals. So that is pretty much it. I hope to see all of you guys get in a bunch of investments by the end of the year. I hope you stay blessed. I will see you on the watch list tomorrow and on stream. Have a wonderful weekend. Peace out.